Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf, Menachos Tzadik Ches. We are 7 lines off the top of the Amud. V'kama Amma Beinonis. Yesterday we learned that the standard, the routine Amma, is an Amma which consists of 6 tefachim. Then we have a mini Amma which consists of only 5, which were used in certain instances, as we discussed yesterday. And then we have a jumbo Amma, which is actually bigger, slightly bigger than 6 tefachim, as we're going to see coming up soon. Okay, so what is an Amma Beinonis? How many tefachim is the Amma comprised of? V'kama Amma Beinonis. So you know the small one is made of 5 tefachim. What about the bigger one? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Shisha tefachim. It consists of 6 tefachim. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Bar Abin, Afanana B'Tanina. We'll find this very exact formula in our Mishnah regarding the dimensions of the Shulchan, which according to Rabbi Meir was built using an Amma of 6 tefachim, full-size Amma. Af Anana Mitanin. Rabbi Meir Imer. HaShulchan, which we know was 2 Amma long. How many tefachim is that? 12. Arkai. Its length is Shneim Asar, 12 tefachim. V'rachba, and its width, which was merely 1 Amma, is Shisha, 6 tefachim. Says the Gemara. Okay. So now we know we have a mini Amma consisting of 5 tefachim and a maxi Amma consisting of 6 tefachim. But we still call it Beinonis. For what reason? Beinonis sounds like it's medium-sized, in the middle. Mechlal, do you mean to say Dahavya Amma Danafisha Mina? Does that imply that there was an Amma measurement which was even bigger than 6 tefachim? In 100% correct. V'atanan, in fact, we have a Mishnah in Maseches Kelim. Shtei Ammis. There were 2 Amma yardsticks used for measurements of, for construction of the building, construction of the vessels. Shtei Ammis Hayu. They were situated in a room called B'Shushan Hapira. Actually, Rashi says it was in the Beis HaMikdash. It was a room which was above the eastern entry, the Shar HaMizrach, to the Azara. So there was a room upstairs which got the name Shushan Hapira because there was a tzir, some sort of artwork, perhaps on the wall, which engraved in the wall, which was Kitavnis Shushan Hapira, the shape, the drawing, the configuration. It depicted the city of Shushan Hapira. Why? What was the purpose? We'll see later in the Gemara, actually. So this was the name of the room, Shushan Hapira, and that's where they stored their yardsticks. Achas. So one of these yardsticks were on one corner, Al Kerem Mizrachas Tzvainis, on the northeastern corner of the room. V'achas, and the other one, the other yardstick, the other Amma measurement, was Al Kerem Mizrachas Draimis on the southeastern corner of that room. And they were differently sized, slightly different. Shal Kerem Mizrachas Tzvainis, the one on that corner, Yisera al Shal Moshe Chatzi Etzba, was slightly bigger than the standard Amma which was established by Moshe Rabbeinu back in the Midbar. And this was a half a etzba, so I have an etzba as a finger width, a half of the etzba. Now a tefach consists of 4 etzbois. This was half of that, an eighth of a tefach. So it was a little bit bigger than Moshe Rabbeinu's measurement by that much. Whereas the other yardstick, Shal Keren, that was placed on the Mizrachas Draimis corner, Hoysu Yisera Aleha, was even greater than this one by the same amount of Chatzi Etzba. So in total it was a full Etzba, longer than the one established by Moshe Rabbeinu, than the standard Amma. Nimtzas Yisera al Shal Moshe Etzba. So since it was a half longer than the one that was already a half longer, so this was a total of an etzba longer than the standard 6 tefach Amma. And what's the point? So now we've established that we have bigger ones. So we have the 5 tefach one, we have the 6 tefach one, which was the one that was established by Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the standard one. And now we have these supersized ones. Okay, interestingly, the next line of the Gemara, if we pay attention to the words, the Gemara is the kasha. Why do we have a big one and a small one? Now, which one is the Gemara referring to? The ones that we just mentioned, the two jumbo ones, and the achas gedola is the larger one of the two, and the ketana is the smaller one of these two jumbo ones. That's not the case, because we're going to see soon it doesn't work. Achas ketana here means the standard, the 6 tefach Moshe Rabbeinu Amon. The achas gedola is referring to both, the pair of big ones. So what's the point? What's the purpose in the super jumbo amos, which were technically longer, bigger than the required amma? The answer is like this. It served the following purpose. It was meant to avoid any concerns of diversion of public funds, of doing me'ilah. So when they commissioned, contractors to build the Beis HaMikdash or to fashion the kelim, they would contract them with the smaller amount. Say, okay, you got to do just a small one, and then they would actually build bigger using the bigger measurement. This way, we are 100% certain that they did not cut any corners. In fact, they gave us more than they were obligated to. So this way, we avoid any issues of diversion of public funds, of misusing public funds, of doing me'ilah. Today, for the purpose of sheyihu ha'umnin, so that the workers, craftsmen, noitlin, they take on the job b'ktan using the smaller, right, the standard amma measurement. That's what they obligate themselves to do. But the actual finished product is presented using the bigger measurement. Today, the purpose is shelo yavayu l'idei me'ilah. It shouldn't come to me'ilah. Now, fine. So I understand why we need a super jumbo one for this purpose. Well, why do we need two extra sized amas? The one that was a half a etzba, and the one that was even more than that. V'tati lamadi. What's the point of two? Chad al kasp of the hava. The one that was merely a half etzba bigger was meant for craftsmen dealing with gold and silver. So, due to the high value material that we're talking about, we didn't want them to have to give back so much more than they're obligated. So this way, we just require them to do a half a etzba more than the chad al binyana. Whereas the one that was even bigger, the one that was a full etzba bigger, that was meant for actual building construction, which entails cheaper material. So in this case, they're obligated to do a full etzba more than their contract. Non-hustle. Okay, speaking about the Shushan Abira, so we have a Mishnah which describes exactly what happened there. Shara Mizrach, so this is the eastern entry to the Azora. Olav, upon it was a room which had Shushan Abira Tzura, had a tzir, a depiction of Shushan Abira. My timer, what's the purpose of that? In the Beis HaMikdash, we have Rav Chizda and Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dimi, they both provided their reasons. Chadam one explained, in order that they are cognizant, they recall where they came from. Rashi says, by seeing the Shushan Abira, where the Yidden came from, to Yerushalayim to build the second Beis HaMikdash, they'll be thankful to Hashem for enabling them to leave and to come back to Yerushalayim. So it's always good to remember where you came from, which evokes hakaras hatev and appreciation. That's one explanation. Chad Amar, the other one explains, as we know that certainly in the beginning, Malchus Paras, the Persian kingdom, was still active and in reign. We want Klal Yisrael, despite the fact that they returned to Eretz Yisrael and rebuilt it, we want them to still accord proper respect and have proper attitude, proper fear, and submission to the Malchus of Paras, so that they stay, good with them, maintain relations and peace. Mechadam, the other one explained, the fear of Malchus shall be upon them, and don't rebel against them. Rabbi Yanai, On this topic, says Rabbi Yanai, Lo'olam tehi emas malchus alecha. It's important to have proper respect, proper ema, proper awe and fear, to relate properly to kingship, even non-Jewish kings. It's not about the person, the actual king. It's about the position. It's about the office. Malchus represents Hashem's malchus. They are appointed by Hashem to be leaders. You have to relate to it accordingly. Where do we find this in Tanakh? We find it 2 times. Shenema, we find by Moshe Rabbeinu with Paroi. As bad as he was, Moshe Rabbeinu treated him with respect. Shenema v'yordu kol avadecha eila eila. In foretelling him what's going to happen by, makas becheres, instead of, you're going to be coming running after me, he says, no, you're a slave, your servants are going to be looking for me. But in actuality, what happened, says Rashi, really, Pari himself came running and looking for Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu presumably knew that in advance. So why did he hide that fact? Why did he sort of mask it? Well, it's going to be your slaves looking for me. Vishtachbli and bow to me. Lema, right? So he referred it to his avodim rather than relating it directly to Paroi. Why? Because he was a melech. Kaved malchus. Rabbi Yechon Amar Mihacha, I have another source. Shenemar Eliyahu Hanavi treated Achav, the great Rasha, with respect, as befitting his position. Shenemar Yad Hashem Hoysa Eliyahu Vayishanis Es Masnam Vayeretz Lefnei Achav. Achav was riding a horse, and Eliyahu ran in front of him like a servant. Ad Vayach Israel. Okay, once we mentioned Rav Chizda and Rav Yisrael Rav Dimi, we have another lesson that was presented by them, an explanation of a pasuk. This pasuk is in Yecheskel again, describing the stream of water which will flow out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim in the future Beis HaMikdash, alongside of which will be growing trees, leaves, and wonderful plants. V'aleu, and its leaf, litrufa, will provide curing, will have medicinal effects. The word trufa can be split into 2 words. Rashi calls it a nutrikon, like a joint word. Rav Chizda had one explanation, and Rav Yitzchak Rav Dimi had a different explanation. Chadam one explains, Letrufa can be learned as lahatir, to release, to open up an opening. Chadam one explained that this plant had miraculous abilities. Lahatir pesha lamala, will release, one's mouth will open and enable a mute person to speak. Chadam will explain lahatir pesha lamata, to open the opening below. In other words, a barren woman will be able to give birth. Itma, we have the same 2 opinions presented in the name of different Chachamim. Chizki Amar, Lata Pe'ilmim, to enable the mouth of a mute person to speak. So you eat that leaf and suddenly he's speaking. Vakapar Amar was meant for a barren, Lahatir Pe'akoris, for the barren women. Tan Rabbanan. Now we shift back to the Lechem Aponim. So as we learned, there are 12 breads in total, stacked on 2 piles, 6 in each pile. How do we know that? Ilu nemar l'kachto soiles, v'fisa oiser shtemes rechalis. Had the pasuk simply said, you take soiles and you bake up 12 breads, v'samta oisam shtay marochis, and place them in 2 marochis, 2 piles, without adding the number 6, v'lenemar sheish, without adding the number 6. So the pasuk reads like this: v'samta oisam shtay marochis, place them as 2 piles, 2 stacks, sheish hamarochis, 6 units per stack. Ala shulchan haTorah lefnei Hashem. So if not for the number 6, I would speculate that the 2 stacks need not be 6 and 6. For instance, this could have 4, this could have 8. Look, that's why the pasuk mentions the word 6. Now we know it's 6 and 6. But had the Torah only mentioned 2 stacks, 6 per stack, without mentioning the total number of 12, it would be room for confusion again. I would say, perhaps shalish shel sheish. You meant to form 3 stacks, 6 units per stack. Right? The pasuk says you make the Shtayim marachis, 2 stacks, and then it says sheish marachis, another stack of 6. So perhaps it's 3 times 6. That's why the pasuk needs to present a total number which is 12. Now we know it's not more than 12. Then on the other hand, the pasuk would only say 12 and speak about 2 stacks. Without saying the word 2 stacks and 6 per stack. Meaning, why can't the pasuk simply suffice by saying, look, it's 12 breads and 2 stacks? And you know, it's 6 and 6. I would say, shloisha shel arba arba. I would say, yeah, it's 12 breads, and there are several stacks, maybe 3 stacks. 4 units per stack. Right? Rashi learns that it would seem that it's only 3 stacks, because the pasuk says 12 bread, would say 12 bread, and that would say ma'arachis. Ma'arachis is plural too, and then it says again ma'areches. That's another stack. So you would learn it's 3 stacks, not unlimited. It's 3 stacks, and you divide the 12 into 3, which is 4 per stack. Great. Right. So that's why the Torah has to specify everything. This way it's clear. No room for confusion. That's why the pasuk speaks out. Shtayim v'sheish. 2. It's 2 stacks, right? Shtayim marachis. And then the pasuk mentions the number 6 as well, to tell you that it's meant to be a total of 12. It's meant to be 2 stacks. How much per stack? 6. So it turns out, ad shelo yomru shloisha mikros halalu. So if not for the Torah specifying these 3 points, which 3 points? The total number of 12. The fact that we have 2 stacks, shtayim marachis, and the fact that each stack is consisting of 6 breads, sheish marachis. If not for that, lo lamad, we wouldn't know what's going on. How many breads? How many stacks? Okay, tzad. But at the end of the day, we now know clearly. Nois and shtayim marachis shosha sheish. That he sets up 2 stacks consisting of 6 units per stack, and that's the way it's meant to be done. But if he shifts it around, it's not going to work. If he does 4 and 8, it doesn't work. What about shtayim shel sheva sheva? Makes 2 piles consisting of 7 per stack, which is really more than you need. There's an extra 1 on top. Rabbi Yomer, just ignore it. Roin, sol yoin, kilein. Just ignore the top one, as if it's not there. And the lechem panim is okay. Ask the Gemara, what about the spoons of the levoina, which is meant to be placed all on the stack, and now, because of that extra bread, it's not sitting on the real bread. It's a chatzitza, something in between. Amrli Rav Chizda Rav Nuna. Some say it was Rav Nuna Rav Chizda. Here's the answer. Rebbe L'tamei, Rebbe, who says that even 7 can pass, that's because he's following his personal view. The Amar tells us, al b'samach. When the Torah says, put the levaina al on the, it can mean nearby. Al doesn't always mean on top. He holds that al, in this case, means nearby. So you put it on the table, on the shulchan, near the bread. It's not on top. There's no issue then of the extra bread on top. The Sani we find in the Brisa, Rabbi Yomer Nasata ala Marechas levaina zaki. You put the levaina on the stack. Al means besamach, nearby, on the table alongside the breads. You're suggesting al means besamach, nearby. Or maybe perhaps ella. Al mamish, al means literally on top. I'll bring you a raya, proof, from the following pasuk, where the word al is mentioned in describing something that's alongside, nearby. Parechas was a horizontally placed curtain dividing the heichal with the Kodesh HaKadoshim near the Aron. It wasn't al, wasn't on, wasn't hovering over the Aron. As a parechas, now we see that the word al means besamach, nearby. Here as well, levaina was alongside the bread on the table, not on top. Continues the Gemara. So the shulchan, right, the menorah, the vessels in the mikdash were positioned lengthwise along the length of the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so the Beis Hamikdash is going this way lengthwise. The shulchan's length matched the configuration of the building, lengthwise, consistent with lengthwise. Tanur Rabbanan, Kol HaKelim Shel Mikdash, all the kelim in Mikdash, Arkan, they're alongside L'Arka Shel Bayis. It was configured in the same direction as the Eirach, as the length of the Bayis. So it was length to length. Chutz mi'arin, except, there's one exception, that's the Arain, which was in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. She'arka l'ruch b'shel Bayis. The long side of the Arain went along was placed along the width of the Bayis. Right, so the Heichal Kodesh HaKadoshim was 60 amma long, right? 40 for the Heichal, 20 for the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The width was merely 20 ammas, right? So Shulchan was situated this way, lengthwise, menorah lengthwise, but the Aron was widthwise. The Aron, as we know, was 2.5 amma long by 1.5 wide. So it wasn't alongside this way. The long side went this way from north to south instead of east to west. Okay, so the Eirach, just for clarity, the Eirach of the Mikdash was east to west, and the Reich of the width was north to south. Shulchan followed east to west, menorah east to west, but the Aron was placed north south. That's the way it was placed. That's why its poles used to carry the Aron were placed as well. Now, Mike, what's the added reference to the way it was placed, the way the bottom? How is that proving anything? Says the Gemara, that's exactly the point. We are proving from the way the bottom were orchestrated that in fact the Aron was placed widthwise. How do I know? How do we know the Aron was placed in this fashion? From this very fact at the bottom were placed from east to west. So that's how I know the Aron itself was from north to south. Right? Let's get a picture of the Aron. So we have a rectangle, right? Which was 2.5 amma long, 1.5 wide. Now the bottom, the sticks, the poles, meant for carrying the Aron, were connected along the narrow side of the Aron. So they went east-west, right? There was a big space between the bottom. It was 2.5 amma. That's the length corresponding to the length of the Aron, which allowed two people to be in there to carry the Aron and still face the Aron. That's the way it's meant to be carried. So they were far apart. So the long side of the Aron went in between the two bottom, which were hitched connected along the narrow side of the Aron, and they were positioned east-west. Hence, the Aron itself, the length was north-south. Okay. Now you'll ask, how do we know the bottom? It's sort of like a chain link. How do we know the bottom, in fact, were positioned east-west? Ubada Manolam. Right, so again, how do we know the Aron was placed in this fashion? Because the bottom were placed this way. Apparently the Aron was placed this way. Ubada Manolam, how do we know the bottom were running east-west? The Sani of Braisa, which describes them as poking through the pareiches, which was that curtain covering the entranceway to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and that pareiches was on the east as you enter. And if the bottom were protruding through the pareiches and bumping through it, apparently they were running along the east-west line. Okay? The Sani, so the bottom extended. Perhaps they wouldn't actually reach all the way to the pareiches. Talmud Leima, Vayero Rosh Habad, the pasuk Vayero, they would be seen. So yeah, they actually push the pareiches, and you see them from the outside. Ivayero, Well, if you take it literally, perhaps they actually tear through it. They go right through the pareches. So perhaps they actually punch through it, and you see them outside. You don't see them on the outside of the, from the other side. Okay, so how does this work? So the more Amid Beis, they push through a little bit. They appear like bumps from the outside. They push a bolt in and they protrude the pareches through the pareches of the and they appear like the woman's chest area. So clearly they were pushing into the pareches. Shenamar, the pasuk says, describes it, compares it to the woman. Okay, so that proves that the Arain was positioned differently than the Shulchan and the Menorah, which would follow the contour of the bias, placed east to west along the length side of the. But here, the length of the Aron went from right to left, from the north to south. Next question is, this whole configuration is based on a premise. We're saying that the length of the Aron went from north-south, right? So if you're looking at it from east, it would be right to left, right? And that's because the bottom ran towards us, right? From west to east, into the pareches. And that's assuming that the bottom were attached to along the narrow side of the Aron, leaving a large gap between them, which corresponds to the length of the Aron. Who says? Maybe the bottom were actually on the long side of the Aron, in which case the whole thing gets switched around. On the bottom of Lepusya, who's to say at the bottom of Lepusya, to the wide, narrow side, the Aron, Havayasu was sitting, were attached to the narrow side. Perhaps they were attached to the long side, along the longer side. Amar Yuda, no. Because you have to allow for ample space between the two poles, to allow two people to stand there and carry the Aron facing the Aron directly, which was the way to do it. Trey Gavri, two people, Ba'amso, Palga, to squeeze them into the narrow side, which is just an am and a half, Lo Mystiglu, they can't fit in there. So clearly, due to this requirement, the bottom were attached along the narrow side of the Aron, okay, leaving a large gap between them, which was 2.5 amma, sufficient for two people. But who's to say the four people carrying the Aron, two on either side, which would necessitate space for two people on either. Kahasim trei. Kahasim are two Levim. And then it says Noisei Amigdash, that carried the Migdash. Namitra, it's another two people, a total of four. Okay, so bottom line is like this. You walk into the Heichal, you're going from east to west. You're going along the length of the bias. You encounter the Shulchan, which is facing east-west, likewise the Menorah. But when you get to the Aron and the Kodesh HaKodashim, it was switched around. You would see the length of the Aron going from right to left, north-south, and the bottom protruding towards you. They were attached to the narrow side of the Aron, protruding towards the pareches, into the pareches, and there's a gap, enough space between the two bottom for two people in the front of the Aron and the back of the Aron. Continues the Gemara. On the topic of the Shulchanos and the Menorahs, here goes. Shlomo Melech actually added to the number of tables. Moshe Rabbeinu only made one. Shlomo Melech wanted to increase, the conduit of Parnasa. The Shulchan is the conduit of Parnasa. That's why the bread is on the Shulchan. So he added 10 more tables, Tana Rabbanan. When he built the Beit HaMikdash, Asoro Shulchanos Asa Shlomo Melech. He built 10 more tables. Shenema Bayas. Later we'll see, the Gemara discusses whether all of them had bread or not. Shenema Bayas Shulchanos Asoro, he made 10 more tables. Placed them in the Heichel, alongside the original Moshe Rabbeinu Shulchan. In fact, they flanked it. Chamisha Mimin, 5 tables to the right of the original one. Chamisha Mishmal, 5 to the left. Now, Vim Taimar, you can't say, what does right and left mean? So again, let's just picture the Heichel. Walk into the Heichel, you're faced with a huge, a room, 20 amma wide, And in total, between the Heichel, which was 40 amma long, and the Kodesh HaKodashim behind it, which was 20, it's a 60 amma structure. 60 amma, room, so to speak. Now, the right side is Tzafon, and the left side is Darim. Now we know that the Shulchan is meant to be in Tzafon, to the right of the halfway divider, so to speak, right? Running down the middle of the Heichel. It's meant to be on the right side. That's where the Shulchan is meant to be. The Menorah is meant to be on the left side of Darim. So when we speak about the extra tables being 5 to the right, 5 to the left, you can't say 5 to the right of the entry, which is in Tzafon, and 5 to the left, which is in Darim, because the Shulchan is meant to be in Tzafon. So you have to somehow fit all 10 or 11 tables to the right of the Heichel, which is Tzafon territory. And that's the next point in the Gemara. If you'll say Chamisha mimin ha-Pesach, Chamisha mismal ha-Pesach, when the pasuk speaks about 5 to the right, 5 to the left, it means 5 to the right of the entry, which is in Tzafon, 5 to the left of the entry, which is Darim. That's illegal. In this case, the Shulchan will be on the Darim, which is not allowed. The Torah says, Shulchan titna tzal Tzafon. Shulchan meant to be on the Tzafon side. So you have to say that the pasuk means everything was in Tzafon on the right. It just means to say that 5 to the right of Moshe Rabbeinu's Shulchan and 5 to the left of Moshe Rabbeinu's Shulchan, but ultimately they're all in the Tzafon side of things. Elo shel Moshe b'emtza, the Moshe Rabbeinu's original Shulchan was right in the middle, flanked on either side with 5 more tables. Chamisha mimina, Chamisha mismina. Tanur Rabbanan. Just as Shlomo Melech introduced 10 more tables, he also introduced 10 more menorahs. More oir, more Torah. Esa menorahs asa shleim. Shenema vayas asa menorahs hazav. Esa kamishpat. He made 10 more. Vayitar meichel placed in the heichel. Again, 5 to the right and 5 to the left. The same story. Chamisha mimina v'chamisha mismoil. If you'll tell me that Chamisha mimin means 5 to the right of HaPesach of the entry, v'chamisha mismoil means the left of HaPesach, that's not going to work, because if so, matzina menorah mitzafon. Turns out that some of the menorahs will be on the tzafon, which is not allowed. Torah says clearly a menorah is meant to be in Darim. Menorah is meant to be on the opposite, the area of the Shulchan. Shulchan is in Tzafon, and the menorah is meant to be Darim. Ella, rather, the pasuk means all 11 were on the left of the divider. All 11 were in the Darim. Ella shel Moshe be'emtza. Rather, it was configured as Moshe in the middle. V'chamisha mimina, v'chamisha mismoila, and the 10 more menorahs flanked at 5 on either side. Okay, so we have a general sort of depiction of location, but here comes more specific discussion about exactness of where exactly we're placed vis-a-vis each other. Tanichad. So first of all, we have an apparent contradiction. One brisa says, Mechatzi bais l'fnei hayu menachos, that all these extra kalim were placed in the inner half of the room. Okay, so in terms of the heichel, which we said was 40 amma long, it was on the inner 20 amma, meaning closer to the Kodesh HaKadosh. With Tanichad, we have another brisa. Mishlish habayis l'fnei hayu menachos. They were placed beyond the first third of the bias. Are we talking about the same location? Yeah, like Hashem, no problem. It depends how you're reckoning. In terms of strictly the heichel per se, which is 40 amma, so within 20 amma, once you push in 20 amma, you're halfway, you're past the half point of the heichel per se. But if you calculate the heichel as part of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, so it's a total of 60 amma, so going beyond the first 20 amma gets you past a third. But it's really the same exact place, just a question of point of reference. Like Hashem, Marka Chashiv Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim Ad Heichel, the one that said third, that's because he's counting the Kodesh HaKadoshim together with the Heichel, so you have to reckon with a total of 60, and 20 in is a third in. Umar, the one that said it's past a half, Like Chashiv Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim Ad Heichel, he's not counting the Kodesh HaKadoshim as part of the Heichel, two separate areas. And in terms of the Heichel itself, which is now just a total of 40, so once you're beyond the first 20, you're beyond the halfway point. Tanur Rabbanan. So we spoke about the extra tables, so how were they positioned? right? The shulchan is like a rectangle, has a long side and a narrow side. Were they situated consistent with the length of the actual structure, meaning east-west, or north-south? Then Rabbanan Mizrach Marva Yimenach, the very Rabbi holds, like we said in the Mishnah, the Kalim in the Mikdash were consistent with the configuration of the actual structure. So the long side was east-west. So all these tables somehow had to fit into that corner and still facing east-west. We'll see soon how that works. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, no, Tzafim V'darim, they were Tzafim V'darim. They were going from north to south. And Tosfos points out that he's going differently than our Mishnah, which is Shitas Rebbe. Okay, my time at the Rebbe. Why does Rebbe say that in fact it was all Mizrach Marav, east-west? Gama Menorah. He compares the tables to the way they positioned the menorah. Just like the menorah, which had 7 lamps, were lined up east to west. My menorah Mizrach Marav. How do we know? We'll see in a minute. Afhaninami, likewise, we assume that the shulchan, which was situated near the menorah, they're configured alike. Likewise, these tables, Nami Mizrach Marav, were situated running from east to west. How do we know the menorah itself was situated like that? Because we have something called the Nema Rabbi, the western facing lamp. Yarach Oisei Aron Lefnei Hashem, that there was one that was Lefnei Hashem, closest to Hashem, closest to the interior, closest to Kodesh HaKadoshim. It was the most western one. Apparently it's running east to west, and that was the closest to west. Mechlal Dekulu Lefnei Hashem. Apparently the other ones, the remaining 6 lamps, were not Lefnei Hashem, meaning that was the closest, because right, this is east and that's west. So the menorah, instead of being positioned north-south, was positioned running from east to west, and the one closest to the west is called Lefnei Hashem. Hence we know that it was lengthwise along the east and west. Fine. Because if you go with the opinion that it's Tzafim V'darim, that the menorah was running from east to west, Kulu Nami Lefnei Hashem Ninu. So they were all just Lefnei Hashem as the last one, right? Because none of them were closer to west than the other ones. So that proves my point, says Rebbe. At the Shulchan, just like the menorah, were Mizrach Marav. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, who says no, actually it went from right to left, from Tzafim to Darim. My time, why Gar Aron? He learns from the Aron, which we have already established, ran from Tzafim to Darim, from right to left. Ma Aron, just like by the Aron, it's Tzafim V'darim, as we had proven from the Badim, right? Afanonami, likewise, these Kalim, Nami, Tzafim V'darim, were running from Tzafim to Darim. So basically, according to Rebbe, we should really have a dilemma here, because the Aron ran one way, the menorah ran a different way. So who's to say which one to compare the Shulchan to, right? Rebbe, Nami, Ligmar, Ma'aron. Why doesn't he learn the Shulchan from the Aron? That it went from Tzafim to Darim. The answer is, it's in a different domain. He'd rather compare the Shulchan to the menorah, which was adjacent, which was right there, outside in the Heichal, rather than the Aron, which was inside the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which runs a different system. Done in chutz mechutz, we learn outside from outside, and done chutz mechutz, rather than outside from inside. Rabbi Elazar Shimon, Ligmar Menorah. Next question. Rabbi Elazar Shimon, why is he comparing the Shulchan to the Aron, that it ran Tzaf and Darim, compared to the Menorah, which we have established, at least according to Rebbe's understanding of the Psukim, the fact that there's a name Aravi indicates that they were sequenced along the east and west line. Amalach, he tells you, guess what? The menorah itself, Kufa, Tzafim V'darim Avamancha, was not running from east to west, it was Tzaf and Darim. Elo Ksiv Yarach Oisei Aron Abanav. Hold it, what about the Pasuk, which refers to a very specific lamp, which was, the Mitzad Lo Tzduti. So he learns that even though the pasuk indicates that there is a ner lefnei Hashem, right? Yarech oisei aron abanav, and then it says lefnei Hashem, right? Which indicates that there is one specific one that's called lefnei Hashem, which according to Rebbe meant that it was closer to west because it was running east to west. According to him, that's not what it means. It's referring to the middle one. The menorah had 7 lamps. It ran north-south. The middle one is called Lifnei Hashem. Why? The mitzad lo atzdudi. Because he would tilt, he would manipulate the wick towards the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So only the middle one had that leaning, whereas the other ones all were leaning, right, were tilted towards the middle one. That's what the pasuk means. So when we speak about Lifnei Hashem, it's not in terms of the actual location of the lamp that was closer to west, but the wick and the flame would be bent over towards the west. The Sanya, in fact, we have a raya from this to this from our Brisa. Pasuk says, "Al mol pnei ha-menorah yeiru shivas haneros." So the 7 will be yair el mol pnei ha-menorah. They'll be facing the menorah. Malamed. What do we learn from here? Shoy mitzadin pneim kalape ner emtzoi. So that the middle one is called ha-menorah. Rashi explains because that was actually sitting on the base, right? The middle pipe was like the base of the menorah. The actual, backbone of the menorah. Then we have the kanem, the pipes extending from the middle over to the sides, over to the top. So the other 6, el mol pnei ha-menorah, face the actual menorah. They face the middle flame on the actual menorah, and that's what we learned, that they all tilted towards the middle. The Sanya. El mol pnei ha-menorah yeiru shivas haneros v'lam she'im mitzadadin pneiim kal pnei ha-mitzoyim. So that fits what we said. Amar b'nasim mekan, we learn from here an interesting point. She'mitzoyim is shubach. The fact that we give prominence to the middle one tells us that the middle one is always considered meshubach, more prominent than the ones next to it. And Rashi says, he says it has an interesting application. Gemara Megillah, which speaks about Kriyas HaTorah, right, the aliyahs that we give. So, at a minimum, you're meant to read 10 psukim of the Torah. Each fellow is meant to have at least 3, but that gives us an extra pasuk, right? Because 10 divided into 3 people. So, who gets the 4 psukim? So, based on this Gemara, it's going to be the middle fellow, because he's the more meshubach, he's the more prominent of all the olim. So he gets the most psukim. Okay. So let's just recap for a second. Shlomo HaMelech introduced 10 tables. Okay. Now the pasuk describes them as being set up 5 and 5. The Gemara concluded it doesn't mean 5 to the right of the heichel and 5 to the left. That's impossible because it's all meant to be on the right side of the halfway divider. It's meant to be in Safin. So it means 5 to the right of the original Moshe Rabbeinu Shulchan and 5 to its left. Now, in terms of direction, which way were they situated? Right, the length of the Shulchan, the long side, was situated east-west, la'orkei shel bayis, or was it right to left, Safin Darim? According to Rebbe, Mizrach u'Marav. Right, according to Rabbi Lezer Shimon, Safin Darim. Now we're going to have to figure out how do we fit so many tables into a very confined corner. Right? Remember, it was halfway into the room to the right. So in that little corner, you have to fit so many tables and make sure they all stay within that side of the divider. You can't spill over to the other side. We said it has to be in Safin, right? So Mishlam Mandamar Mizrach u'Marav, according to Rebbe, it works. Hainu davu yasivi asara. That makes sense. You can get 10 tables, and each shulchan, as we said, is 2 amma long. And the room here, you have 20 ammas to work with, right? Right? Because as we said, the tables were situated in the 20 the 20 inside amas, right, of that room, right, the inner half of the room, which is 20 amas long. The whole room is 40, so you have 20 to work with. So 10 tables, if you line them up in a straight line, so to speak, right, straight line, well, it's 2 times 10 is 20 amas, great. 10 tables could fit in Be'esra and 20 amas. Great. But if you work with the other shita, that they went safan and darm, so in our terms, let's call it right to left. You're walking into the heichal, you have a safan on the right, darm on the left, and it's a total of 20 amas from the right wall to the left wall. And if you say that the shulchanis was situated from right to left, so imagine a row of tables. 10 times 2 amas, that's 20. But as Rashi says, you can't fit 20 into a room which is exactly 20. It's just not going to work. You always have a little bit, extra space. There's a little airspace. If it was running Safam Darm Yud, so 10 tables of 2 amas each lined up in a straight line, b'chaf, in an area which is exactly 20 amas. How would you fit it in the Su? Furthermore, how would the Kahanim get through? When they have to go in to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, Yom Kippur, they can't get through it. There's a blockade of tables. So furthermore, Matzinu Hei Shulchanis B'Darm. According to this configuration, we'll have 5 tables to the left in Darm, which is not allowed. Vesu, next question, Shulchan Moshe Heicha Manachle. Where did they put the Moshe Rabbeinu's table? You filled up the whole. There's no room for another one. Tamech says the more. Whoa, 1 second. And even according to you, if you go with east to west, okay, so you managed to fit the tables, all 10 of them, but there's an 11th one, Moshe Rabbeinu's table. Nami, Shulchan the Moshe Chav Manachle. Would they put Moshe Rabbeinu's table? Oh, Ella, so you must say that they split into 2 rows. It wasn't a single row of 10 tables. That gets us into trouble. Ella misavers chadarav. Do you think it was just 1 row? It's really darihava. No, there were 2 rows, 5 and 5. It says the Gemara. Okay, so we split them into 2 rows. We fit them in. Now bishleima. We move on to Tzadi Tes Amin Aleph. Bishleima l'manda omar tzafain v'darim shaper. But now we have another issue. Access. We need some space around the tables to allow the Kohanim to access the tables. And as we learned earlier, for 2 Kohanim to approach, we need 2.5 amas, as per the space by the Arain for the 2 Kohanim, the Levim carrying. So here as well, in order to come over and set up the bread, to remove the bread, Rashi brings there were 2 Kohanim who would come in on one side to bring in the new bread, 2 Kohanim on the other side to remove it. That requires space, 2.5 amas of space. So let's see how this is going to work out. We need to fit in all 11 tables in the tzafin of the heichal, right? So bishleim l'manda amar tzafin v'darim shaper. So in order to fit in the tables and the access spaces around them, if you go with tzafin darim approach, so if you take a look at the diagrams in the Rashi that we have here. So up on top you have one diagram at the right and one towards the middle of the page. So that's the one we're going to be focused on right now. It's running from right to left, so to speak, from Tzafin to Darim. So according to that approach, which is Reb Lezer, Reb Shimon, right? According to that approach, Shaper works out. What do you mean it works out? It works out that all tables can fit into the Tzafin, to the right side of the heichal. So again, you walk into the heichal. To the right is Tzafin, where the shulchanis belong. To the left is Darim, where the menorahs belong. And down the middle, you have this sort of imaginary, boundary running down the middle from east to west. On the right of it is Tzafin, on the left of which is Darim. So you have to fit everything in on the right. Now, how wide was the area in total? So from wall to wall, it was 20 amma. So you have to get all 11 tables into the 10 amas off to the right, from the right wall till the imaginary midline boundary. If you go with Tzafin Darim, it works out because look, at most you need here is 5 tables lengthwise. Each table is 2 amas long, so 5 times 2 is 10. Perfect. But if you hold like Rebbe that was running from east to west, so the tables were ranged lengthwise running from east to west, that would be depicted in the diagram to the right. So it's in the right of Rashi here. Now we're in trouble, because you can't fit all that in, that small area. It's not going to fit into 10 amas, into the 10 amas to the right of the boundary. Why? Michte, take a close look. Let's analyze the numbers. Shulchan kama moshech menachos. You can't put the. You see that diagram has the 2 rows of 5 running from Mizrach up to Marav, and the Shulchan Shel Moshe sandwiched in between. Now, you can't run the right row of 5 tables hugging the wall, hugging the right wall. You need some access space, which is 2.5 amas. So there must be a gap between the wall to the right, the Tzafin wall, over to the first row of tables, 2.5 amas. So you have to count 2.5 amas for that. Then the table itself, the width, the narrow side is 1 amma, so that's another amma. Then between itself, that row and Moshe Rabbeinu's table in the middle is another 2.5 amas. Then we have the table and amma, and then another 2.5 amas to the next row, and then an amma for that last row, which is over the boundary. You've now encroached. You've gone past your 10 amas. You're in Darim now. Why? Because 3 times 2.5 is 7.5, plus 3 amas. Table is 10.5. You've gone from Tzafan into Darim somewhat, which is illegal, right? Michti, kama shulchan kama moshech menachos. How far removed is the table? Is that row, that right row of 5 tables, going to be removed from the from that right wall? Michti shulchan kama moshech menachos l'shte'amas u'mech 2.5 amas v'ama dedei, and add another amma for the actual width of that table. It's too long, but an amma wide, so it's just an amma. And then another gap between that row and the middle table, Moshe Rabbeinu's table, which we assume was placed right there in the middle. The Gemara will change that soon, but that's the assumption at this point. 2.5 amas in between. Va'ama the day, another amma for the actual table, and then over to the other side between Moshe Rabbeinu's table and the left 5 table row, which is 2.5 amas of gap again. Another amma for the actual table there. Now you have a total of how much? 10.5 amas. The Shulchan is now consuming, so to speak, a half a amma into the wrong side, B'darim, over the boundary, into Darim, into the left. How does this work? The answer is no. Moshe Rabbeinu's table is not stuck right there in the middle. Rather, it was placed at the head. So we can drop down to the next diagram, sort of halfway down the page here. Moshe Rabbeinu was a table. The original table is no longer a sandwich. It's pushed up, away from the sandwich. So that saves us a lot of space. We don't have to account for that table and the extra gaps. So now all you need is 2.5 to the right of the right row. Then you have the amma for the row, 2.5 between itself and the left row, and the left row. That's it. That's only 7 amas, which is comfortably to the right of the boundary line. Misaris, do you think Shulchan, the original table, the Moshe Bahadayu Havayas, was sitting alongside the rest, a sandwich between them? No, the midlile. He would lift it. Rashi says, you see, the mountain would slope upwards as you were going westwards. That's why it's called midli. You lift it, meaning you push it towards the west a bit, away from the 2 rows. Umanach, you place it separately. Umitziluhu, and you lower them down towards the east. The 2 to them. Porta a bit, so you lower them a bit to the east. Talmud Hayeshiv lifnei rabbi. It's like a rebbe in the classroom, like a teacher in the classroom. You have the teacher's desk up on top, and then the students sitting around, and that's the impression you got over here as well. It was Moshe Rabbeinu's table sitting at the head, in which case you did not have to account for it in terms of allotting space. Okay, so now everything is comfortably in the tzafin side of the heichal, and all's good. Okay, so what do we have today? We discussed the various Amma measurements. You had the small one, the 5 tefach one, the 6 tefach one, and then the jumbo one, which was meant for, which was used by the during construction and the fashioning of the kalim to avoid me'ilah. We discussed the engravement of Shushan Abira with several reasons given for that. We discussed Kavod Malchus, irrespective of the personal value of the king on hand. We discussed that Lechem Apanim had 12 chalis in total, split amongst 2 stacks, 6 each. We discussed the configuration of the kalim in the Mikdash, going to Rebbe. Lengthwise of the long side of the kalim were arranged lengthwise along the length of the structure, so it matched, and except for the orain, which was facing the other way, and that was proven based on the fact that the bottom would protrude through the pareiches. We spoke about the direction of the menorah as well, 2 shitas, and how do we define Ner Ma'aravi? Was it the most westward candle, or was it the middle one, which was tilted towards the Ma'arav? And we discussed the extra shulchanos and menorahs that were introduced by Shlomo HaMelech in the Beis HaMikdash, and where they were all situated. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha.